Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy.
What are we talking about this week, Christy?
We are honored to have our friends on the podcast today, Khrisann and Cindy, who live with a seeing eye dog.
They're good friends of ours who were nice enough to join us for a conversation and a look inside what it's like to actually live with an active working dog. And that would be Miss June. June is Cindy's seeing eye dog. She is a yellow lab, and although she won't be making an appearance on the audio today, I don't think.
Never know.
Well, that's true. We are going to just get an interesting look at what it's like to go through the process of getting a guide dog, living with a guide dog, and so on and so forth. So welcome to the show. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks
Absolutely.
for being willing. Khrisann, if you can just say hello so people can know what your voice sounds like.
Hello, everybody.
And Cindy, if you can say hi.
Hi.
Perfect. So everybody can understand who is who. And June is Cindy's guide dog. That is the background.
Yeah. We always like to start off our podcast asking what animals you live with and what your favorite thing about them is. So we know you have June, the seeing eye dog, but we'd love to hear your favorite thing about her and then who else you live with.
I think the favorite thing about June is that she steals Khrisann's socks.
It is one of my
especially
favorite things too.
if anyone comes over to visit, she will go steal Khrisann's socks. Now, won't do anything with them, but prance around with them like, look what I have. Now, she doesn't steal mine, but she
No.
steals Khrisann's.
That is really not what
That
I
is true.
expected, but it is
That is
amazing.
true. We also have Fia, who's a rescue. And I guess my favorite thing is her talking to me. She talks to me every day when she wants something or she wants to do something or I'm not doing something fast enough. She never talks to Cindy, but she talks to me.
And Khrisann imitates her perfectly.
Oh, I was going to say, can we have like a little sampling of what that sounds like?
She'll sit there and she'll,
Like a little grunt.
yeah.
Maybe she has a little bulldog and we just don't know it.
Well,
Mm.
yeah.
Oh no, but you guys do know
Yeah.
what she is.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
She's
she does have a little bulldog.
She does have a little bulldog?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, here we go. All right, but we're not here to talk about the love of bulldogs. We're here to talk about Miss June
Yes.
and her relationship with Cindy and what it's like to live with her.
Cindy, can you walk us through what the training program and the process is like for new guide dogs that come home with you?
It starts out with the dogs are all born at the school, whatever school that may be in the country. And when they're about 8 weeks old, they go to live with a puppy raising family for about a year. And what they do then is become socialized because they'll join a puppy raising club and they'll do things together. And then they learn the house manners, the fun stuff. And the puppy raisers will like take them to airports and just to get them out in public. And then when they're like 12 to 15 months old, they go back to the school for formal training for 4 months. And they're with, it's called a string, they're with 7 other dogs. So those are kind of their buds. And every instructor, every trainer has a string of 8 dogs. So they're together throughout the whole training. And after that is done, then enter the blind person. And it's quite the process. So the school will actually do a home visit and do a pretend, they call it a Juno walk, which is just when you are practicing, like if I would say June forward, she'd know to go forward. But when you're doing this practice, the dog's name is Juno. So at that point, the school comes out, they do that, they ascertain, your pace, what type of dog you're going to need, what your routes look like. And they can even tell like what kind of pull that you want the dog to have. And they go on routes with you. And one of the things they want to do is actually determine that you really need a guide dog, because who wouldn't want to have a very well-trained dog go with them all the time. Yeah. So after that, then you have to do all the medical things and fill out all the applications. And the school then will call and say, we have a dog for you. And really what that means is they may have a few dogs that a certain instructor is looking at, and they'll give you a class date, and then they will fly you to the school, and you have a few days to meet with your instructor, and they do those pretend Juno walks again. And then the instructor determines what dog they think that would be good for you.
Huh. Okay, I got so many questions already. Okay, I'm gonna start with the string of dogs. That's not their litter mates. That's just dogs they've been put together with?
Right.
Okay. And do you know is how they determine which dogs get put together, or is it just kind of the same timing that they come out of?
That's a lot of it on their age.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And then when you do the Juno walk, it's pretend. There is no dog?
No, there is no dog. Back originally, they would have like a beach towel rolled up and a harness on there. And here you go walking down the street in your hometown with this towel and a harness.
About thinking you're drunk.
There's no stupid blind person walking a towel. But
that person got ripped off. They don't even have a dog.
I know it. Doesn't eat much though. But now it's like an electronic thing, and they can measure your gait and your pace and all of that.
No way.
Yeah,
wow, that's cool.
Kind of high tech.
That is very cool. Okay, so all of that information then helps them determine, because I would imagine different dogs have different gaits, different paces, all of that. So if they're trying to make the best match, then they're trying to match, okay, this person has a slow gait. We would want to put a slower dog with them because it would be more natural for the dog. And I would think easier to have them become a team.
And so much goes into it because, is the person older?
What? No one's old on this podcast. We're not. Yeah.
Well, this is true. Do they have any special issues? Are they hearing impaired? Do they have some mobility issues? Because oftentimes people who are blind have other things going on. So they kind of determine that, and they actually look a lot at the personality of the person.
Huh. That makes sense.
Make sure the personality of the dog and the person go together.
So when I went to get June and met with my instructor, after 24 hours, she said, okay, I know who your dog is. But at that time, I have no clue who the dog is.
That is so cool, though. And obviously, for listeners, Christy and I know June. We know both of you. I can't even imagine. I mean, June is such a perfect match for you.
She is. She's a brat.
Yeah.
Like we said, a perfect match for you.
It's perfect.
I don't steal socks, though.
That's true.
But you and Khrisann definitely embrace a little sassier side, and June has a little sass to her. So
yes, she does. So the best part about getting the dog, and I love telling this part, is so you get to the school on a Monday, and you spend Monday and Tuesday doing the Juno walks and just, walking around with your cane, getting to know the campus, learning where everything is. Because if you've never been there, it's, you have to know where your room is and how to find your room and where the stairs are and how you go eat. And, there's a lot that goes into it. But then on Wednesday morning, and it's like this at all the schools throughout the country, it's very much a tradition and a ritual. You go to breakfast, and then you go back and you sit in your room on your bed. And they bring the dog, knock on the door. And like my instructor said, knocks on the door and says, Cindy, that's Fia. She says, Cindy, I have your dog. And I say, come in. And they open the door, and in bounds this 18-month-old yellow lab.
Oh
Runs
yeah,
up
because
to me.
they're young.
She had just gotten a bath. She wasn't totally dry. Puts her paws up on my shoulders. And the instructor says, Cindy, you have a yellow lab named June. You know, how old she is, how tall she is. And then they hand you the leash. And they leave and say, get to know one another.
That's it?
Well, I mean, for those few moments, then you have like an hour that you just sit in your room, because they're all private rooms. You sit in your room with your dog, and sometimes you just kind of sit and look at each other, because the dog's like, who the heck are you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what if you don't like me?
Oh. I mean, I guess that's a valid fear, though. You're meeting a dog you're gonna live how many years with?
Have you ever had a dog not like you, Cindy?
Well, that's true.
Well, not that they told me, but I don't think so.
I don't even know any non-service dogs that haven't immediately loved you.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, okay, so there's there's different guide schools throughout the country. What
Yes.
have you always gone to the same school?
I've gone to 2 different schools.
Okay. How many guide dogs have you had? If you've gone to 2 schools, how many have you had?
June is number 6.
Okay.
And she says she is the best. But all
Well-
the others have said they're the best too.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
You know, that's just
Yeah.
kind of how it is. I changed schools after 3 dogs, just like anything with dog trainers or even teachers when you're in school. You agree with things they do, you agree with the way they train, the way they teach.
Sure.
And the one school had just adopted some training methods that I didn't like very much.
mhm.
So I had a lot of friends who had gone to this other school, and I knew their training methods. So I changed.
Okay.
And it's a personal preference.
Yeah.
Both schools are absolutely wonderful schools. It just depends what you want and how you feel about the training.
That makes sense. I mean, I think that's what people go through to choose a trainer for their pet dogs, but this is like
Sure.
high level. So I would think that you would definitely want to make sure that you align with the school's methods and how they go about things. That makes sense to me.
Yeah. And so then did you interview those schools? How did you determine that it was a right fit? Although you knew other people who had been there.
I knew other people who had been there.
Mhm.
Okay.
And of course, I talked to people at the school, and
Yeah.
when the school interviews me, of course, they want to know why I'm changing schools.
Oh, good point. So,
Sure.
so you're interviewing the school, but does the school accept everyone, or they're interviewing as well?
They don't accept everyone.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, some of it is because they determined that you don't really need a guide dog, or not that you don't need one, but that your lifestyle doesn't support having a dog. I mean, if you sit at home all the time, you may want a guide dog, but if you're never going to use the dog, they don't want to provide you with one.
Yeah. And
Sure.
and these dogs are bred to work.
Yes.
I mean,
Only about half of the dogs that go into the program, like when they go into their string for training, only about 50% actually make it to be a guide dog.
that seems like a correct. I would think that's a
Yeah.
decent percentage for a washout. You know what just popped into my head was when during the pandemic, when June was much younger and a newer guide dog to you, and how she struggled because you weren't going anywhere. And she
Right.
really struggled with not having a job in a traditional sense for what she was trained and bred to do. So it does make sense to me.
She still does.
Really?
It's
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
some long-term effects.
Yeah.
Really?
We couldn't go anywhere, so what we did is walk. And it's okay to like go for a walk with your guide, but in their minds, they want a destination.
Mhm.
So we would just walk and
Oh.
walk and walk. And it wasn't until like a year and a half later that we started actually going to restaurants or movies or public places.
Mhm.
And she didn't really remember how to act. So she still is not the
Oh.
best at that.
She's
Because
very restless.
How
She gets
old
restless.
was she when the pandemic happened? She was young.
She was born February 17th of 17. No,
Right.
18. She's
18.
6
So she
now.
would have, yeah, so she would have been 2 years old. That's
Yeah.
like the height of her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
That's
And
tough.
I'm interested. Sometime I will find out if other guide dog handlers have had kind of the same issues, because
Mhm.
I call her my COVID dog.
Mm.
Yeah.
So such
That-
a common term
It's a
among
term
dog
nowadays.
owners. And
Yeah.
like you just don't think about it being for a working dog too, but it affected everything, everyone.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and I would think for you it has much higher potential fallout because you need
Yeah.
her to be able to do what
All
she's
the things.
supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Once you go through the training at the school and you bring the dog home, what are some of the rules or the guidelines for for your guide dog? And as
Chrisanne's
laughs,
already
I'm
giggling. Yeah, she's
How-
giggling.
How well did you guys stick to those guidelines and
Well,
rules?
So when I go to school to training, I'm there for 3 weeks and then they fly you home. So really, you're still getting to know the dog and the dog is still getting to know you. And you go to this strange place. You get on a plane. Often it's the first flight the dog has ever taken. And you go home to the strange place and the dog's like, what is going on? I don't know you. I don't know this place. And as far as the rules, for anyone who has more than one child, now speaking of two-legged, the first one always has to follow all the rules. And by number
So
6,
poor Cosma.
well, Cosmo, because what they want you to do is you're their sole person. So whoever else is in the home with you, Khrisann, they don't want you to interact with the dog at all.
Oh,
Not
right.
to nothing.
Horrible.
Which for a dog person like Khrisann, it's like I can't look at you. I can't look at you. And I should be doing all the feeding, any treats, which is another thing that one of those rules that they aren't really supposed to do. So any going out to, and what my school calls it is to park when they have to go out to potty.
Okay.
So I would be in charge of all that. And Khrisann just kind of sits back and ignores the dog. And it's really hard.
So does
And is
that mean that
supposed to be forever?
Supposed to
Well,
be, but
Yeah.
Supposed
Okay.
to
That's
be.
supposed to be like you're supposed to live with a dog for years and ignore them.
as
and
long as
never
they're
have an
on,
interaction.
like
as
when
long
they're
as they're
on the
duty,
job?
when she retired, so when the others had retired, it was like, okay, you're my dog now. Come on, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, so does that mean every time that we have been around June, we were breaking the rules?
Yes,
Well,
that's
she's a
exactly
big
what that
child.
means.
If she has been in harness, yes, but really, I mean,
Oh.
every guide dog handler we've been together almost 5 years. So
Yeah.
after a certain point, I mean, we know our relationship is strong.
Mm-hmm.
So, and June, as you know, is very, very social.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that at this point, nobody's going to ruin her or break her.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in your home, you are supposed to be the sole provider of all things. And then
Yes.
when she is out in the world, and in harness, she is
Mhm.
working, but if she's out of harness, it's okay for her. Like, she's been at my house, she's been at Christy's
Yeah,
house. We've pet her, we've played with her. That's okay.
that's okay.
All
And
right.
it's when you say
It's
that,
okay.
it made me think that oftentimes if we're out in public, people will say, "Oh, she looks so sad." It's
Oh,
like she's working. She's very serious about working. She knows
Yeah.
that she holds my safety in her paws, in her
mhm.
eyes. You know, so no, she's
Yeah.
not sad. She's just working.
She's serious about her work.
He's serious.
Yeah.
And
Very
when that harness comes off, it's like a light switch because
Mhm.
she works
She is like a
hard
different dog.
and
She
plays
is.
hard. Yeah,
Yes. Because off, out of harness, like she will like run up to my door. She's so excited to come in. She's
yeah,
wiggles. And then I saw her in harness and I like look at her and she's like, don't even look at me. I don't
yeah.
know you.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yep.
oh, right. You're working. Okay.
Yeah.
yeah.
Isn't that so cool though, as a testament to her training and her
Mhm.
breeding, that
Yeah.
she is able to be that regimented? I mean, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
It is. It's the whole training of guide dogs. It's just amazing because they're trained to stop at any change in elevation, whatever that means. So if we approach a curb, she will stop.
Mhm.
They're also trained, like if we're walking down the sidewalk and there's a branch above us, to stop. And that's one of the hardest things for the trainers to train a dog to do, is to know
Sure.
if there's something
Yeah.
above them.
Mhm.
Wow. That's some phenomenal trainers too, I'm
And
sure.
one of the coolest things is that it's what's called intelligent disobedience, which I think is funny. I do that a lot.
I love that.
Um,
Yeah.
I love it too. Can you explain that, Cindy?
so we're approaching a curb and we stop. And you know how in Arizona, I don't know if it's across the country, there's the right turn on red.
Mhm.
So we're at a curb and I'm listening for the traffic and I hear the traffic going the other way. And I'll say, June, forward. And she starts, well, what if a car is turning right in front of us? Or what if a car is turning left on the other side of the street? Like we're going through an intersection with a stoplight. They
Mhm.
aren't paying attention to who's walking across the street. At that point, if the car is turning left in front of us, the dog will make the decision, is there enough time that I just speed up and pull her with me? Or do I need to wrap my head around her leg, pull her back so that the car doesn't hit me? They make that decision, and that has happened to me before.
Wow. That
That's
is
so much.
phenomenal.
And during class, they do that. They have people who will drive vans and then electric cars because that's
Oh,
you can't
yeah.
hear them.
Sure.
So they will do that. They'll like pull out of driveways, go around corners, and it's really scary when they do that because here you have this new dog and you're learning to trust, and then they're
Yeah.
driving cars at you.
They're driving cars at you.
Yeah,
Oh my
true.
gosh, I hadn't even thought about the electric car thing. That's such a good
Yeah.
point because you can't hear them.
Yeah.
No.
Wow.
And you
that's
can't
so
see
much.
them.
Well,
Yeah,
yes.
right. Right.
You
And
can't hear
that's
them. I can't see them.
Fair.
yeah. And that's so much information that the dog is taking in at once. Wow, that's a lot coming at them for them to make those split-second decisions.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
seriously,
they're incredible.
that's so phenomenal. I'm like, okay, this episode's done. Like, that's bomb. Like, that's so amazing. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. So that's very, very cool.
I was just gonna ask, kind of hear from both of you
Yeah,
what
poor
the
Khrisann.
experience yeah, what the experience has been like having a guide dog in your home. Because I think when I brought the subject up of having you guys on the podcast, Chris Ann said, "Oh, our experience is very different." And part of that, I think you went into a little bit with that. Khrisann is not supposed to be rolling on the floor playing with the dog. Um, so that is a different experience. So I did want to see kind of what that experience was like for each of you.
Well, like you said, it's because I'm such a dog person, it is difficult. I mean, I just really have to stop myself a lot of the times. It's like, no, you can't do that. It's
Mhm.
like, but but the dog is wanting your attention. So that's where it's fine line. It's like, you still have to acknowledge them, and you still, have to be able to, talk to them or anything. It's hard, and what's, I think with Cindy, some, when she's been unable to like walk June or something, and I have to step in and take her for walks and such, then when that stops and Cindy's back able to walk her, it's like a transition. Because of course when she's with me, she's not having to work.
Mhm.
She's
Right.
just out on a walk with Fia. So,
Mhm.
it's you can see a difference in her too. It's like, okay, and you got to work on getting that back. So that's why it is important to kind of separate that.
When you and
Yeah.
Cindy met, did she have a guide dog?
No.
So you have kind of learned this experience with her because you were
Uh-huh.
already together
Right.
when you gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I was
I
still
can
driving when we met.
oh
Yeah.
really?
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have kind of gone through the progression together.
Hmm.
Yes.
What year did you get your first guide dog, Cindy, if you want to share?
2000.
2000. Okay, and
Okay.
you're on your 6th in 24 years. Okay.
Yeah. So how do you know when it's time to retire your guide dog?
Ooh.
Well, she's
Well,
had placements that didn't work too. So,
Oh yeah, we
Yeah.
want to talk
yeah.
about that too.
Oh, we're definitely talking about those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
okay.
That's,
So
yeah.
as far as retirement, the answer is you just know. But
Mm.
how do you
It's
know?
like love. You
Well,
just know.
Well, and Christy and I have seen you transition from one guide to dog to
yeah,
another. Yeah, but it's hard.
it's hard. You notice that maybe they don't want to put the harness on as quickly. It's
Ah.
like they back up, like, okay, and they slow down. And so much of what the handler and the guide dog experience together, like I can feel through the harness handle her emotions,
Oh.
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
then she can feel me too. And
Mm.
I can tell when a dog gets to the point, like with Piper, who was older, you can just tell that the passion isn't there.
Mm.
Mhm. Yeah.
Why does that
And
make you emotional?
usually then oftentimes you can call the school, and if you really have doubts, they'll send a field rep out, and
Oh.
you'll go for a walk and you can talk about it, and they'll say, you're right, time to retire.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to just share what happens when they retire? Do you have a choice whether to keep them, or how does that work?
You have the choice.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things at the school, that my second school that I went to, is once you leave the school after training, you own the dog. And it's not that way for all the guide dog schools.
Oh, really?
Really, it doesn't mean a lot, but I like the idea that I own my dog.
Mm-hmm.
She owns me more than I own her.
especially June.
Yeah.
Especially June.
June owns everyone.
That's true.
Yes, she
That's
does.
true.
Except for Fia.
Oh,
Yes.
that's a good point.
And
That's
Fia
true.
owns her.
Yeah. That's
She owns all of
hilarious. Yeah.
So do some people then, when they retire their guide dog, are there some people who then return?
Well, you have some options. Like, what if you're a single person
Mm-hmm.
and you live in a teeny tiny apartment in New York City?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It would be hard. And if
Yeah.
you don't have, once you own the dog, then like if I couldn't keep any of the dogs. I have a list of people who would love her, but you can.
I am number one on the list.
Excuse me, I'm raising my
you're
hand.
way down the list. But
Oh, damn.
The dog could go live with a family member.
Yeah.
Some of the people I've known who can't keep them, they can send them back to the school, and the school will place them. They can talk to the school, and then the school will talk to the puppy raiser and see if the puppy raiser wants the dog.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't imagine not keeping them. But
Mhm.
Khrisann and I are in a position that we can keep any of the retired guides. Plus,
Right.
then she gets her.
Yeah. Then
Khrisann
Khrisann
is like,
can
finally.
do whatever she wants.
It's my turn.
Yeah.
I believe that I just got to know the two of you when you had a guide dog that you had just momentarily, and then he washed out of the program. And
Oxford.
what was his name?
Oxford.
Right.
Oxford.
So
Yeah.
do you want to
Had
kind
before
of,
that, though, too.
you had some before that?
Yep.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Well, here's how I think about it when I try to explain how a dog doesn't want to be a guide. The dog is born at the school, and for the first few weeks, he's with his siblings, or she's with all the dogs in the kennel, and there could be 100 of them. And then the dog goes to live with the family, and the family trains them all these things, and they get exposed to public settings. And then the dog goes to class and is with 7 other dogs, becomes very attached to the instructor. And then they meet this strange blind person and work with them. And then they go in a big plane and they fly to a place they've never been to with this person they don't really know. And then reality comes. And for all this time, they've been pretty sheltered and structured. With Oxford, what happened is, we started to work, and he's like, "Oh shit, this is not the application I filled out." And
I faked my resume.
I mean, that's kind of how I
literally
think about it. Because he was with all these other dogs in training, and they went on trains and buses and into airports, but that was not the real world for the dog in training. It's the real world when they're guiding someone, and it's just the two of them. So each of the dogs that I've had who worked under 2 years, it was different with Oxford. And he was so adorable, this little black lab.
He was cute.
But whenever another dog would approach him, he would be aggressive. And he would just and lunge at them. Well, you can't do that.
No.
Yeah.
So he just, once the real world confronted the real world, he's like, I don't think I want to do this.
Right.
So that's a really hard process when you call the school and you talk to the trainers. And by the time I had Oxford, I had other dogs from the school. So they were familiar with me. So they trusted what I said when I explained what was going on. So we took him to the airport. An instructor flew in from the school. We met them at the airport. I handed Oxford's leash over to her, and she took him away.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, actually, what happened is he was on my leash. So she came and put her leash on his collar, and I took my leash off.
Oh, that feels symbolic.
It was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from your perspective, Khrisann, you want to know that your wife is safe
Absolutely.
when she's going out. You're trusting this guide dog to keep her safe in your stead. And it's got to be hard for you when you don't trust that dog.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, because just having them go on their own and be out in the world with nobody else around, it's like, it's hard, because if you don't trust that dog. And
yeah,
I don't know, Oxford, I never had a good feeling there. I didn't.
And we know that Khrisann has Khrisann's got real good gut about dogs. So
Yes, she
And
does.
we should clarify. We know Khrisann from rescue.
yeah, from
and
the
we know Cindy
shelter.
through Khrisann. Yeah, and Khrisann just has a way with dogs and a knowledge about
Yes,
dog
she does.
behavior that she just sees what most people don't see.
That's very true. Absolutely.
So for you, it was probably hard from the get-go because you had a little voice.
Yeah.
And how long did you have Oxford?
I only had him for 4 months.
Oh, yeah.
But still 4 months of trying to make
and
it work.
going through the whole training in school.
Yeah. And we even did that when I had Lucy. Yeah. And we did an intro with Lucy where we knew she would be pretty neutral. And she got up to Oxford and immediately she like jumped back before Oxford ended up lunging and trying to attack her. And I think Khrisann was like, see, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
That's a very neutral dog. Like, and she was not, she was like avoiding eye contact. She was very much making herself known that she was not a threat. And he still was like, I think you might be a threat. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that he was aggressive. He was just afraid of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he went back to New York and lived with his puppy raiser. So
that's what I was
going to
ask. I was curious because I would imagine that somebody was attached to him, I would think, and where he ended up.
So I'm sure he's having a great life.
Oh yeah. Now Mina, your first one that didn't work out, she was a sweetheart, and she actually went and was retrained as like a spokesperson or spokes dog for the school and would go to kids classes and that kind of be consider.
So still a working spot, but just not a guide dog.
Yeah, she just didn't want a guide.
Yeah,
she was lazy.
She was very lazy.
She was lazy.
and sometimes if the dog doesn't make it and they go back to the school, they could still become working for the police or some other type of disability. They could be trained for that. And if not, then it's called career change, which is really what it is.
Yeah.
They're revising their resume, as Chris said. Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think makes a good guide dog?
Confidence. And I know when the dogs are born, when they're puppies, they're immediately exposed to things like in the kennels, in the little play area. They have different sounds and different things that like come at them that they learn to be familiar with and comfortable with. And I think they just need to be confident.
What do you say, Khrisann, from your perspective?
I think very loyal. Really have a feeling of being able to attach to one person and that connection.
One thing that made me think of this interesting is that for the first few dogs, I think until Piper, I would have a really hard time because I would tell Khrisann, they love you more than me. And it was really hard. And when I went to get Piper, you go through all these classes. And even one of them is a grief class for those who have lost guides, which it's very beneficial. But the question was asked, other people felt the same way. My dog loves my wife more. My dog loves my husband more. My dog loves my boyfriend more, or my mom or my dad. And I'm like, oh, yes, I'm not alone. And what they said is, that's not what it is, but the other person in the family, like Khrisann, they're the driver. So the dog knows if they go somewhere, she's going to be the driver. And they have a different kind of attachment to that. And I was so relieved. Even though I still kind of think she likes Khrisann more. But
you know what we say in our house, Jer's the fun guy and I'm not. maybe Khrisann's the fun one.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I don't know.
That's funny. What do you guys think for each of you? What does a guide dog kind of provide you? Maybe we'll start with Cindy and then go to Khrisann.
Well, for me, independence,
Yeah.
safety.
Yeah.
It's just the bond is, it's almost like closer than a spouse.
Sure.
I mean, like I was saying, feeling her emotions through the harness, it just, it's even hard to describe.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
and I'd say just seeing the confidence that it gives Cindy.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think just knowing that she's able to go out and do
Right.
things on her own, and yeah.
Rather than with the cane tapping back and forth and back and forth,
Mhm.
and then getting it caught in the crack in the sidewalk and having the cane about go through your stomach.
Oh my.
And it just, and what my first guide was Cosma. I went out for my first walk and I just, it's almost like if you are shuffling, walking, and then you pick up a harness handle. I thought I was flying and I started to cry. And my
Aw.
instructor in back of me, I could hear her go, and she said, Cindy, her ears are like angel wings.
Oh.
So it's just, pretend that you're doing like a 3-legged race and you kind of take a step and then stop. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you pick up this handle and it's like, wow. When I've walked with people, they're like, you have to slow down, Cindy.
If you have that kind of connection, which I mean, clearly you do with a guide, how do you struggle to make a transition when you are retiring one and then going to a new dog? Is that hard?
It is hard.
Yeah.
The hardest is for people who go to get their second dog. And it's actually known as second dog syndrome.
Oh.
Because, they've had one dog. And so everything they think and feel is going to be based on that one dog. Sure.
Mhm. Mhm.
What was the hardest for me after one of my dogs retired and I went to the different school and got Piper, I had a hard time bonding with her right away because I just sat and looked at her and I said, okay, what am I going to do now that's going to make you not want to work? Even though it wasn't my fault that the other dog didn't want to work. But
Yes.
it's like, okay, what's going to happen now? And it took me a while and she picked up on that. We would kind of sit and stare at each other for a bit.
Mm-hmm. Because you had one of the washouts prior to her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course I blame myself because that's what humans do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we do.
That's a universal problem. Yeah.
So it took a while to get that confidence back.
Mm-hmm.
To trust yourself and her. Yeah.
Have you?
Plus, when I brought her home 3 weeks after we came home, we were hit by a car.
Oh.
Well, that's not great.
You and Piper?
Yep.
Really? Oh no.
And it's one of those things. We were getting ready to cross the street. The light was red, so the car to our left was stopped. So the driver was looking to the left. Are there any cars coming? No, fine. I'm stopped. I'm going to turn right. Bam. Fortunately, she was driving a Range Rover, so it hit me and Piper was under the bumper. So it didn't hit her at all.
Oh my goodness, Khrisann, what was that call like?
Well, it was round Christmas time, and I was actually at a Walgreens picking up some items, and she was walking to meet me. So it was like part of the routine. And so she, I've got this basket of stuff that I'm waiting for her, to come. And she calls me and she says, we've been hit by a car. And I'm like, where are you? She was just down the street, but I'm like, holy shit, I just dropped the basket and ran out,
Oh my goodness.
And we called our vet immediately. And I was like, we took Piper right to they're like, bring her in right now, and
wow.
I mean, that wasn't funny, but they run out with the stretcher, and here's Piper like, hi, what are we doing?
Piper was a golden retriever, just so everyone can kind of get an idea of what
She
that
was a
looked like.
lab golden
Oh,
cross.
she was a lab golden cross. Thank you.
Yeah.
But she looked a bit more golden, am I
Well,
remembering
color
right?
wise, she was,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
I could tell, like, oh, that's the lab in her. That's the golden in her.
Yeah.
But, and oftentimes that if a handler and a guide have something like a traffic accident, or like on the 4th of July, if the dog just is traumatized by fireworks, they have to be retired.
Wow.
So that was my fear, and then called the school and talked to them. But Piper was a trooper. She's like, okay, I'm good.
Well, that was an
happens.
experience.
Yeah. Okay,
You're the one
so
who got hit, Mom.
she's like, thanks for taking the brunt of it.
Yeah.
Better luck next time.
Yeah. So I just was thinking, okay, Oxford was male.
Yeah.
Have you had, and he was a washout, have you had a male guide dog that has stuck? No.
He's the only male.
Is that
Well, he's
by
the only male
chance?
that you've ever had.
Yeah.
Is that by chance?
It is.
It is.
And I think some of it is that male dogs are bigger.
Oh.
And I'm not that big of a person.
Yeah.
So I've been paired with female
Plus,
dogs.
Yeah.
If you don't mind me asking, you say that this might be your last guide dog. What goes into that decision?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm not young.
Yeah.
Although I know I've been in class with someone who's been 80. Oh, I would love to go back and get another guide.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this time I probably, because, bodies have changed.
Sure.
And I think I would like have a request for a larger dog, whether because my mobility isn't the same, my balance isn't the same.
Oh, yeah.
And
I could see that.
If I, like right now, if I was walking by myself, I'd have a cane. I mean, like a old people cane. But June helps me keep my balance. So that would just be a consideration.
So then would that be considered like a dual purpose working dog?
No.
Okay. So the mobility is just kind of like they just match you with a dog that also suits that purpose.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I would request, it's funny, both of my yellow labs have not been real lovey and cuddly. And June isn't.
Don't tell lies about June.
But I want the dog to like give me kisses and crawl up in my lap.
Oh.
Yeah.
June is not that way. But neither was Cosma, and they're both yellow labs. Now Piper, who had golden in her, she loved to lay between my legs and she'd give me kisses. So one of my requests is that I want a cuddly, lovey dog who's a little bit slower than June.
Well, because when she's off, then she can, kind of be a companion to you too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But she just isn't, she's kind of aloof. Don't you think, Khrisann?
Yeah. Well, yeah, she is. She's in her own little space, that's for sure. But I do think that with me, you know Fia, and the process we've had with her in the last year and a half.
Peeling back the onion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how I am with that wanting, dog to be cuddle with me and all that kind of stuff. And Fia is not.
Now you have no cuddly dogs.
But June has kind of stepped in, and there are times when she'll do that. She'll get up on the couch and snuggle with me.
Has that happened since you lost it? You had a Cocker Spaniel who was, he was, well, two, but, and they were cuddly, right?
Yes, they were. Yes.
So has that transitioned since you lost them? Oh,
I think because she knows Fia is not, I mean, she's
not going to provide that.
I don't want to say that Fia is totally different. She will cuddle with me 10 minutes. I get 10 minutes every night. But
That's a 10-minute improvement.
yeah, exactly.
June's
But
like
Fia
working all
kind-
over the place. She's working it.
Yes, she is.
Fia kind of cuddles with me more than Khrisann. And I think some of it because Fia doesn't want anyone looking directly at her,
No.
looking into her eyes, and I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I think she senses that. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm June's mom, so she's June's best friend. So,
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
so I think Khrisann and I are jealous of each other with that.
I mean, it sounds a little bit like that, but that's fine.
Yeah, for good reason.
I know. Huh.
But we acknowledge it and accept it, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, after the amount of years that you guys have been together, I think, everything's a little water under the bridge at this point.
40 years this August.
40
Yep.
years.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing.
That is awesome. Yeah.
So kind of going back to the guide school thing, it's tough because I see a lot of stuff online from a training standpoint, and I just see so much of an influx of people. I want to get this dog to train as a service dog, and I want to do this and I want to do that. Nobody can see, but Cindy's covering her eyes right now. And so we do all acknowledge that getting a properly trained service dog is very expensive. I think we can all agree there.
Right.
And so, I've heard that there's scholarships. I heard that there's ways to do this sort of, I don't know, in a cheap way, or you can get a scholarship, or there's ways for just anyone to get a service dog. Like, do you have thoughts on that or sort of insight on how it kind of all works?
You mean like fake service dogs?
Well, we'll go to that next.
well,
No,
first-
I
first
actually
what-
mean real
what?
service dogs. No.
The
Guide
biggest
dogs. So
blessing.
guide dogs, she doesn't pay anything.
Oh.
So from the moment that they say we have a dog for you, they pay the flight, they all room and board, wonderful meals. When what they want is for when you come to school to have nothing else to think about but training and bonding with your dog.
Huh.
Okay.
So
So there you don't pay a penny.
but that makes sense then why the application process is so stringent.
Sure. And it by a time a guide is trained, it's about $65,000 that's invested in them.
Who pays
Wow.
that?
Donors.
Donors. It's all a private donation. There's
Wow.
no
So it's
government
all
funding.
nonprofit.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
I
And-
wish other service dogs were that way, like for any other diabetic or for hearing impaired,
Mhm.
anything, but it's unfortunately only that way for guide dogs.
And is that
Wow.
all guide dogs?
All schools, yeah.
All schools for
Wow.
guide dogs.
Mhm.
Okay, I had no idea.
I didn't either.
I'm learning. Wow. Is there a reason it's different, or do you have thoughts on why it's different?
I don't know why, but what a blessing it is. And that
Yeah.
makes it even harder when I have
Yeah.
a dog who doesn't work out.
Yes. Yes.
That's a lot of money invested, but sometimes it just doesn't work.
Well, I
Just
mean,
like relationships.
yeah. Wow, that's incredible. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the guide aspect of it for seeing eye dogs, but then service dogs that are outside of the realm of seeing eye dogs is a whole nother enchilada.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's so wow.
Yeah, because I do know
Wow.
some people who tried to get a service dog because he's in a wheelchair, and
Yeah.
when they started looking, it was going to be $10,000 to $12,000
Oh, yeah.
out of pocket for them.
Mhm.
So then they tried to train their husky.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he definitely might have pulled the man out of his wheelchair face
Oh.
first. But he had a good at it. He laughed about it. He's like, well, I'm training a husky.
Just like the guy in the store.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, I, I'm sure that there are people out there who have successfully trained
Oh, for sure.
their
Yeah.
own service dogs for sure. I don't mean to kind of poo poo on anybody who's done that, but it certainly is an undertaking. But now understanding that guide dogs and the way that works, I can understand the difference there and then the financial investment difference as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you did mention kind of fake service dogs.
Yeah.
So
And
have you
when I say that, maybe I shouldn't even say fake service dogs in the same
Mhm.
sentence, but you can go online and buy a vest.
Right.
right. And
Now,
there are people who do that.
Mhm.
And has that affected you at all? Have you guys
it
had
has
that affect you?
been,
Yeah.
it has been so impactful for all of us who have guide dogs, from restaurant access to flying. Flying is the worst.
Mhm. Can you
Really? How so?
explain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now you have to fill out a form through I think it's a third party now, but originally you had to fill out a form online from the FAA that tells that what your dog does, and you have to have the vet signature on there and when they had their shots. What they said was you have to email it to the airline 48 hours in advance before you fly. Because this all came about in the last few years.
I was going to say this is new. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Before it was revised, what they said was, okay, you have to send this 48 hours. You have to arrive at the airport 3 hours early. And the first hour you're there, a ticket agent has to observe you to see if you have a legitimate service dog. Well,
Wow.
we don't even need to address any of that.
Yeah.
So that went away.
Yeah.
But I still, if I'm going to fly, have to fill that out and send it in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
have you had incidents where you were out with your working dog, with your guide dog, and you've encountered a imposter, I suppose we'll say, that has affected you and your working dog?
Oh, frequently.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And can you kind of explain like what the impact could be, or maybe has been because you've had incidents? Explain to people why it matters. Why does it matter if I want to take Fluffy and I want to put a vest on her that I bought on Amazon that says service dog and take her into the grocery store with me because I want Fluffy to go everywhere with me and she's a nice dog? Why does it matter?
Well, if you have a pet dog and you want to do that, which is very easy to do, unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
and you take your dog into the grocery store, your pet dog doesn't want to be in the grocery store. It's a completely foreign place to them. Yes, you want them to be with you and you want to be with them, but they probably don't want to be there. So, what if the dog jumps out of the cart and comes and bites me or bites my guide?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well,
Or
then,
even distracts your guide.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
and that has happened. And then the police are involved and nobody wants that.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
what if we are injured or something and the dog can't work anymore?
That's what I was
And
thinking about.
that happens, which
Yeah.
then makes me think of like dog attacks, because I know several of my guide dog friends who have had to retire dogs because you're walking down the street and here comes, it could be a large dog, and I'm
Mhm.
not breed specific or anything. So a dog's running toward me. Well, regardless of how well trained the guide is, they're going to have some type of reaction. Like I
Mhm.
can tell if she sees a dog. So the
Mhm.
dog comes up and starts growling, and I have no clue what's going on.
Mhm.
That's a whole class we do in training at the guide dog school. And what they say is, if your guide gets into a fight, just let go of the harness and the leash,
Wow.
because they will work it out better than if you were there. You're going to
Yeah.
get hurt.
That's good
which
advice
is
for
which is us working with dogs have all been told that, and how many times
Yeah.
too.
because they say
Oh, yeah.
your dog can defend itself.
Yeah.
But I have never known anyone who has done that.
Yeah. Well,
Sure.
and that's a scenario where you're just walking down the street and it's a loose dog
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
I would imagine when you're talking about being in a store or somewhere else where someone has Fluffy and they don't belong there, and June is in there working with you, June doesn't expect that either. She hasn't been
No.
trained to be in a
Right.
grocery store and there's 3 other dogs meandering about. That's not part of her training upbringing. So I would think that's a problem too. And for Khrisann, you must worry. I would think you worry more than you used to.
Well, we mean when we're out?
Well, just from a standpoint of because there's more activity with
Yeah.
people taking
Yeah.
dogs everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's more of a concern.
Well, you're more aware of it. That's for sure. You're always looking to, so that you can try and not let it escalate to something,
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm even
And
thinking like,
a lot of times it's when you say Fluffy, it's a smaller dogs
Yeah.
that are being carried or that are
Mm.
in a grocery cart or something. Not that I'm going to judge as to what their service is supposed to be, but it's
They're-
still,
They're not supposed to be in a cart necessarily,
right,
though.
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, and then enter the ADA and restaurants in any public
Yeah.
place. The people will say, I can't, if they tell me it's a service dog, I can't say anything, which is sort of true. You can say, what task is your dog specifically trained to do for you?
Mhm. Which for you, I mean, obviously. And
Well,
Well,
not
you
so
would
obvious. You would
Oh,
it's
think.
not.
but even with the
Really?
handle, even with
Oh,
your
yeah.
handle?
Even
Oh,
with the
that's the cool
sunglasses.
harness. Where do you get that? Can I get one of those?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
And I think some of it with guide dogs is that there is the perception that someone who is blind either cannot see at all or you're
Oh.
faking it.
Oh.
Because only
blind
about,
people don't do anything.
well, that's true.
Yeah.
Only about 15%,
No.
I think, of people who are blind are actually totally blind.
Yeah. So people
Oh.
are not understanding legally
Visually
blind
impaired.
versus
Yeah.
blind.
Right.
And they'll say, oh, you don't look blind. It's like, well, so what does a blind person look like?
Oh, geez.
But when Khrisann was saying about blind people don't do anything, that's why statistically 70% of people who are blind are unemployed
Really?
because
Mm.
blind people can't do anything.
Well, the dog gives them, well, because you have worked, I mean, are you officially retired now? I
Yeah.
mean, you've,
She's retired finally.
but you've worked the majority of the time I've known you. So
Yeah.
but would you have been able to work if you didn't have a guide dog?
Oh, sure.
Oh, okay. Well,
And this is just speaking of people who are blind, but
Yeah.
that's why the whole perception is that, blind people don't do anything.
yeah.
Mm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, I will say a guide dog has made a huge difference in the places I've worked.
Mm.
Even, I mean, what place doesn't want to have a dog, even though my coworkers couldn't interact with her, at least not when I knew about it. But it was good for education. When I think for the people I worked with and for the customers, I think of some of the things people would say to me being a blind person, and I wear the dark glasses because I'm extremely light sensitive.
Mm.
And someone would say, why do you have those on? And I could be flippant and say, oh, because I want to be cool. But I've had people like take my hand and say, it's so nice they let people like you work here.
Oh dear.
Oh,
I mean, the
no.
things people have said to me.
Wow.
Because it's just people think that we can't do anything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, and that just, I mean, oh boy, I don't even know what to say to that.
That kind of gets away from the guide dog thing, but
Yeah.
And a little side note, I actually technically knew Cindy before Khrisann because on
Right.
my way to college, I
Oh.
would stop in where she worked. And within like a few weeks, she was like, Christy, this is what you're getting, your usual. And I'm like, yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
We just do it differently.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, fair enough.
Yeah.
You know, I can't be a pilot or drive a car. Well, actually, I could be a pilot because now there are blind pilots. But, you know, I can do what you do. I just do it differently.
I think the reason why we really wanted to hit on sort of the recent phenomenon of the fake service dog thing is because for people to understand that it really truly does affect people
Yeah.
who have true, honest to goodness service dogs and guide dogs, but we're going to say in an encompassing term, service dogs. And
Right.
it really truly does affect you. It affects your spouse. It affects your family members. It affects your dog, the working dog. It affects the training. It affects everything. And while I'm a person who loves to take Tiago everywhere, I am extremely respectful of making sure that I only take him places where he's allowed to be.
Yes.
And that if I take him somewhere, he behaves appropriately. And I think we need to be aware as a society. Sometimes Christy and I talk about we've gone so like dog crazy that we don't respect people in the same way we used to. And that goes right along with people who have service dogs. We're not respecting that dog is providing you a service, and it's a very important service. So
And safety.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well,
So
we had a situation a year ago with being denied into a restaurant, and it escalated. It was ugly. It was very ugly. I could have called the police, but you know, I just can't do that. And I called the school and talked to the advocacy person and wrote a letter and explained exactly what happened. And she said, well, you have options, you know, with that state where you were, you can file a claim against this place. You can seek legal action. But I said, you know, I don't want to do that. I just want them to be aware that here we were with friends. We were getting ready to go to a concert. And like over an hour and a half period. Oh, well, yeah, we'll seat you. We'll seat you. And it just, like I said, it escalated. So then I wrote a letter, and then the advocacy person at the school wrote a letter to the establishment on behalf of the school and explained, you know, why they couldn't do that, the whole thing.
Did you get a response? I'm curious.
No.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
No.
Yeah, and the person said, the advocacy person said, if I get a response, I will let you know, but I doubt that we will. But since then, we will never go back there.
Of course.
That was the worst experience I've ever had as far as denial.
And it was simply because you had a service dog.
Correct.
Yeah, and it wasn't just you can't eat here. Oh,
yeah, we don't need
like
to dredge it up. I don't.
Well, I mean, for the fact that the owner went through the restaurant and asked the tables if they would mind if a dog sat next to them.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Wow. Let me also say there's a big difference between, do you mind if a dog sits next to you versus do you mind if a seeing eye dog comes and like my parents would very much mind if a dog sat next to them at a restaurant. They would not even blink an eye if a service dog clearly came in and sat next to them.
Right.
Like,
well, and at the end of the day,
and that goes to
June is protected. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't even matter if they care.
No,
she's allowed to be there.
It doesn't, right? Wow.
Do you mind if another human being sits here? It's
locally. Well, you know, you're going to sit outside. Oh, our patio is closed for an event. Let's see, where can we seat you? Inside
anywhere
with everyone else.
Yeah. Khrisann, that has to piss you off knowing you.
Oh.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well,
I
I mean, any of our group, whenever it's
Oh,
happened, you can just feel
Ooh.
all of our chests getting big, and we're just,
Mhm.
yeah.
you don't mess with our little chickie dog here,
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah.
Wow. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you would like people to know when it comes to living with a service dog, living with a seeing eye, anything?
Well, one of the things that, well, a couple of things. One, if I'm out somewhere and someone says, "Oh, can I pet your dog?"
Mm.
If we're walking down the sidewalk, or if I just don't want you to, respect that. Because I've had, "Can I pet your dog?" "No, she's working right now." And I'll reach down and they're petting the dog.
Oh
Um,
no.
Shocking.
it's like, if I had a baby with me, would you touch my child?
At this
They
day and
probably
age,
would.
probably.
And no kidding, the adults are worse. The
Absolutely.
kids, I think, at least have some exposure. But if someone's with a kid, I'll be the first one to squat down and say, "Would you like to say hi to June," or whoever it was? "Do you know why I have her?" Because people need to be aware of
Mm,
Mm,
what the dog is.
I
mhm.
love that.
Yeah.
There was another thing, I have to think of what it was.
We'll make
Oh, and
oh
sometimes, we're a working team. So if you see us crossing the street, and maybe it's not that we're not safe, maybe we're going a little crooked or something, don't come up and grab the leash or the harness hand.
Oh no.
oh
I know, I
I am
know.
baffled.
I
What?
know I'm like so shocked right now. Just each one
And
gets worse.
and if for some reason you think, "Oh, this person is in danger," just say, "Ma'am, I'm over here on your right. I see that you are doing something." But people will just come up and grab. It's like, I can't see you.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes I was crossing, there was construction, and this voice came up to me, and he said, "I'm Officer so and so with Mesa Police. May I help you across the street?"
Oh, and
But
that was okay.
identify yourself.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Or the other thing is, and this is more of a blind thing. So I cross the street and I'm like, I'm a little confused. I'm not sure where I am. "Oh, can you tell me where this store is?" "Oh, it's over there."
Oh, just point me in the way.
Even with a guide dog, it's like, "Oh yeah, over there."
Well, people don't know what the harness means, so they probably don't
Yeah.
recognize that you're blind
Exactly.
or
Yeah.
or seeing impaired. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Khrisann, what would you say? Is there anything, or do you have anything else, Cindy? We got
don't.
No,
yeah.
no, I'm done.
Maybe one thing I would add is like when we're together and people address me
Oh, yeah.
or Cindy, like, well, what what does she want? It's like, ask her. She's standing
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
She's a
She's a
human.
grown woman.
know,
Like she can make
Non-person,
her
blind
own.
people,
there. I don't know what she.
blind people can't talk, they can't hear,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they can't make a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that my foster dog likes to jump on Cindy and sit
Yes.
on her lap. And I always am like, she can't see you coming. Stop doing that.
But
We're
he's so
definitely
sweet.
we're definitely sharing photos of that because it is
Oh
quite
yeah,
adorable.
definitely.
Well, I really appreciate it. You guys were a blast. Thank you for joining us and
Yeah.
for giving us insight.
Absolutely.
Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Of course.
Of course. If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.